not 2, not 3, but 4 blackberries. I am single-handedly going to make sure that we survive and thrive, because I cannot imagine life without my blackberries. I know you guys, think that the iPhone is a new cool thing, but have you tried typing on it? And I actually have more blackberries than children. And it's a toss-up about which I spend more time with. People are asking me, why do you have 4 blackberries? And it's very simple. Each one of them has a different mobile provider. AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon. I travel a lot, and unfortunately, they don't all work as well in every area. And the 4th one is for my daughters. And they're both in college. And I like to turn off all my devices at night. We'll talk about that in a minute. And I want at the same time for them to know that they can reach me. So they have that one number, which nobody else has, unless there is a threat of an Iran war or something, in which case I do give it to an editor on duty. So, having said that, it's a real pleasure to be here, not just because it's dream country, but because it's startup country. And as somebody who started a startup late in life, I believe there is no time that's too late to start a startup. I remember when I and my co-founder, Kenny Lamb, came up with the idea for the Huffington Post in 2005. The Huffington Post is going to be 7 on May 9th, and we're planning a big party with clowns and face painting, all the things that you do for a 7-year-old. But when we came up with this idea, I remember that even my best friends, even those who really loved me, tried to dissuade me from it. I don't know if any of you here who are starting startups have that, but the older you are, the more people gather around to say, don't do that, it's risky. It's going to be, to endanger everything you have achieved so far. In my case, I've been a writer, I had my column, I was doing TV, so the question was, why do you need to do something so risky at your age? Because the internet is supposed to be a young person's game, right? And after the Huffington Post was launched, the reviews were terrible on day 1. And I remember one actually, I have learned it by heart. It was by Nikki Fink in the LA Weekly. And she said the Huffington Post is an unsurvivable failure. We were about 6 hours old at the time.
Those tweets of many millions of people, harnessed through things like sentiment analysis and trending topics, reveals a huge amount about how people generally are thinking and feeling and behaving on a continually updated basis. So imagine a world where that information doesn't just happen on Twitter, but happens everywhere. Now, in my book, I talk a lot about the psychological and even the spiritual reasons why this is becoming a cultural phenomenon. But what I'd like to sketch out today, because I hope it's useful to you, is what communities of the future might look like as a result of all this self-tracking going on. And by future, I'm talking about a couple of years out, okay? Not Jetson's future, near future. And because ultimately, whether you personally decide to track your movements or not, it's something that more and more people are going to be doing. And much as social media, whether you choose to do it personally or not, has changed the landscape of media, information, journalism, self-tracking as a cultural phenomenon will change how our communities operate. It'll change what kind of useful information we have access to, and what kinds of information and services individuals want, above all, from technologists. So let me sketch out, first of all, an optimistic picture of what the city of the future might look like as a result of all that information. Because that'll be before we get down to the thorny questions, because you know there will be thorny questions. All this information about where people are going and what they're doing has the potential to create cities that are more sustainable, more responsive, and more dynamic than ever before. And let me offer a simple example that actually exists in the real world right now. Anyone use a GPS navigation tool in their car? Kind of talks to you and tells you to turn right in 50 meters or whatever? Okay, let's say that we want to go to the Jane Bond Cafe in Waterloo, great little cafe. Your GPS navigation tool tells you to go to Princess Street and turn left. And it can do that because it knows where your car is. It keeps pinging back information about where the car is located to the satellite system the GPS uses. And because it keeps pinging that information back, it can tell how quickly your car is traveling. And it turns out that that's a pretty good indicator of whether there's a lot of traffic or not. So Google, with its navigation tool, can, if you let it, anonymously aggregate that information, along with more static traffic maps, to make essentially a live traffic map.
The 4 A's are attitude, awareness, alignment, and authenticity. I'd like to take just a couple minutes to talk about each one. For attitude, how many people have ever flown on Southwest Airlines before? Most people. Back in 1967, when Herb Kelleher started the company, he said, I want it to be different. You know, I want it to be a different kind of airline. I want to locate it in small airports, way outside the big cities, so people don't have traffic and big taxes when they fly. I don't want there to be frills, no pillows and blankets. Everybody gets on at the same time, a basic airline. And I want to have the best customer service in the industry. I want to have the best people. And you achieve that. I mean, Southwest only has 9% turnover, far lower than the industry on average. Only one strike in its entire history. For those of us who fly Canada, you know that's a really low number in comparison to the industry average. But how do they do that? You know, how do they create these magic moments where somebody is willing to stand up in front of hundreds and hundreds of strangers and talk so positively about Southwest? How do they do that? What creates that attitude? I mean, I guess the first thing is you can write it down. You can put it as your mission statement. They wrote down on a piece of paper. The mission of Southwest Airlines is dedication to the highest quality of customer service delivered with a sense of warmth, friendliness, individual pride, and company spirit. We all know how important mission statements are. They give us something bigger than ourselves to look forward to. But at the end of the day, it's just words on a page. How do you make it come to life? The president of the company says, it's just simple respect, decency, and friendliness. We just kill them with kindness, caring, and attention. Pauline, the president, started off as Herb Kelleher's secretary in 1967, and she was famous for sending handwritten notes to the company and making it feel like everybody was sort of part of a small group. This is the quote I find the most interesting. One thing we cannot teach is attitude. That first A, attitude, towards peers or other groups. You find an individual with an upbeat and positive attitude, and you'll find that everything that needs to be done will get done. It's very contagious. I'm sure all of us work with people that we can think of that remind us of that sentence. You know, they just have a great attitude, whether they can do it or not. It's just fun to be around them. They get stuff done, and they make the office atmosphere a great place. Like you see people in the front here pointing at each other, which is great. But how do you get that attitude? I mean, have you ever asked anyone in an interview, do you have a good attitude? They usually say, yeah. Next question.